as many tools as I have, I'd have a 30 millimeter 12-point socket, but no, we gotta go to the parts house. All right, I've got a 30 millimeter socket. Of course. Hey, look at that. It did work after all. All right. All right, just to show you what we're dealing with here, that's the inboard portion of the axle. And those are what you would call triple square headed bolts. And we have a 10 millimeter triple square bit. All right, so here's the deal. We'll put 3 lug bolts back in the brake rotor and put a screwdriver there, butt up against the brake caliper. And then we're going to get a long socket wrench and a breaker bar to break the inward bolts loose because they are too tight for the impact. All right, we're going to raise the car and take the 3 bolts off on the lower control arm. And I'm going to take these 3 bolts off right here, and once that's done, we can pivot the entire spindle assembly off of the axle and back toward the rear of the car somewhat, so we can finish taking the bolts on the inboard side off, and then we can remove the axle. Dropping bolts is required, by the way, and these 3 bolts they screw into this bracket here that sits on top of the lower control arm. All right, so the pulling this away is really easy. All right, so this bottom part of the spindle just slips up into the lower control arm. No big deal there. The problem is the tire shop I've been taking this car to over the past few years have destroyed the threads on the hub, and I just finished them off myself. So I'm a little annoyed by that, but I'll get over it. The hub has got to be changed out. Up next, instead of reinstalling the axle, we're going to pull the brakes apart and take the hub off. Let's do that. All right, I spent a lot of time head scratching. Ultimately decided to go ahead and just remove the entire hub assembly and replace the hub and replace the wheel bearings as well. We've already pulled that off, clearly. The spindle assembly is held to the strut with this sort of clamping force type deal here. All right, and the strut just slips down in that hole. I forgot to put my gloves back on. Oh well. And there's one bolt that goes in the back. It holds it on. And when you take that bolt out, you just tap the assembly downward and it slides off. Of course, you have to disconnect this tie rod. No big deal there. You just loosen the bolt, tap the end of the spindle assembly with a hammer, and it'll pop right off. No big deal there. We've already loosened these bolts back here, so to get the axle out, all that's left is to just take those bolts out and that axle will come right out. So I think I'll do that next. But in the meantime, while my parts are shipping, first thing we're going to do is pound that hub out of that spindle assembly. I keep calling it a spindle assembly, but it's not. It's just a hub assembly, isn't it? All right, pardon my messy workbench. Let's see if we can't make this work. Where's my hammer? Good old trusty hammer. We've got a big socket, and we're going to put this right here in the middle on that hub, on the part of the hub there. And this lower ball joint, we've got to change that out too, by the way. I forgot about that. All right, here we go. Let's give this a shot, see what happens here. Never done this before on this type of car, so to be perfectly honest, no fibbing. We don't fib on this channel. Get out of my way. You're not helping. By golly, that's the way to do it, folks. Yes, sir, Bob. That is the way to do it right there. All right, so the hub is out, and this big socket, you just want to find yourself a socket in your tool set that'll fit this part of the hub exactly. Pound it out in the way that I did, and it actually, a few hits and it came right out, so no big deal. As we said earlier, some goofball screwed up the holes. The guy at the tire shop did a number on it, and then I finished it off during my mess, so we got a new one on the way here. So we'll set this aside for reference. Looks like we've got a snap ring in there, so let me get some suitable tools and remove that snap ring. All right, I found my old snap ring pliers. I got 2 or 3 pair, but these old Craftsman from the 90s seem to be the best of the bunch. Back when Craftsman was still made in this country, so that's pretty nice. You can open these nice and wide for this large snap ring. I may have to adjust these bits a little bit. Got to get them at the right angle so that when you clamp down, things will work correctly. Geometry. It's all about geometry. But there's no proofs involved here. Try that again. You know, I probably need to put some straight ones in. These are bent. Or they're bent on purpose, but we're going to put some straight ones in. I say straight. I think these are actually broken. I was probably using them for something that they weren't intended for. Thing's under a lot of pressure. We'll get a couple of screwdrivers here and clearly I don't have the right tool for this. That is one heck of a large snap ring. These snap ring pliers that I have here are clearly too small. I will have to search around for a larger set for the future. All right, now I'm going to pound that old bearing out of the hub assembly in the same fashion as we did the hub. All right, we got a, what is that? A big old honking 41mm socket. Now, just to get it started, we're going to put it on top of the block. All right, it's starting to move now. Was a snap. That wasn't hard at all. All right, one front wheel bearing on an MK4 Golf. You'll note that this portion is missing because when you pull the hub from this assembly, it rips that portion of the bearing apart. So if you're going to change the hub, you have to change the bearing pretty much. So anyway, all that stuff is on order. Just have to wait a couple more days. All right, we're going to take the lower ball joint out of this thing now. Yes, it would have been easier if I'd done this on the car, but I didn't think of doing it at that time. But I think this will work okay. 18mm. Let's see, a quick and dirty way of, I think I'll just pound it out if I can get in there. Well, that was hard. I'm going to need a Torx to keep the center part of that from turning. I got a T40 Torx and an 18mm wrench. And there's your lower ball joint. Not too terribly hard to get out, actually. This one is worn completely out, clearly, and the boot is torn. And this flange is how it connects to the lower control arm. All right, we'll set this off to the side. We'll keep all our old parts for reference. So there you go. You have a hub assembly that's pretty naked. You really want to be careful with this this speed sensor for the brakes, because that's delicate. I had half a mind of cleaning this up and painting it, but it's really not rusty. It really doesn't need paint. I have to stop right here and kind of take a step back and realize that this is not a restoration. This is simply maintenance on a daily driver. So we're not going to get crazy. All right, let's move on. All right, so here we are, side-by-side comparison with the new axles. So this is a axle that came in from GKN. Apparently it is supposedly a rebuilt Volkswagen axle. This is a aftermarket, very inexpensive axle from somewhere on the other side of the planet. I have no idea where. You see, I have heard that these are hollow, and these are not. I don't know how truthful that is, but this one, the one that came out of the car, clearly. All right, so here is the one that came out of my car. I'm pretty sure the inboard joint should not be doing that. And here is the replacement, and it is nice. It has a little play, but you know, the proper amount. So the axle that came out of the car, under light to moderate throttle conditions, applying torque, with that joint being like that, the entire car would just judder from side to side. It was pretty terrible. So that's the reason why I'm changing these out. So we're going to go with rebuilt Volkswagen stuff, and hopefully this should last for a long, long time. All right, folks, I think we're going to wrap this video up. I've been waiting a couple of days for my parts, and this is what we have so far. So for our front struts, we're going to go with Monroe. I like Monroe's products really well. It should provide for a really nice ride. For the rest of the drivetrain parts here, or rather wheel hubs assembly parts, I decided to just go with the house brand at the local parts place. I'm going to forego spending a gazillion dollars on Volkswagen original parts. I don't have the time, and this is a daily driver, and I have to get it back on the road because we use it every single day. So up here we have 2 front new hubs, we have 2 wheel bearings, and we have 2 lower ball joints, and 10 brand new lug bolts. And here the next day or so, when things warm up a little bit, we're going to start to reassemble our front end on our Volkswagen Golf MKIV. All right, folks, we're going to wrap this video up and call this part 1 of the front end rebuild on our Golf. So I appreciate you guys stopping by my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you'd like to be notified whenever I release a new video, don't forget to click that little bell down below. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one. Well, the winter apocalypse of 2021 finally started to arrive. And we have a little snow flurry this morning. Kind of nice. And it's a balmy 14 today in Alabama.